was a couple of times every 4 months, 3-4 months. We have a Saturday and Wampra coincide. It's kind of like a freebie for the monks because we don't. Sometimes after Wampra, we end up. Some of us will stay up pretty late, and then we have the Saturday night talk the next day. So. I've been reflecting upon the last year, and especially the last. Well, yeah, I guess it's been a year since Ajahn Cunda left. 11 months, something like that. 10 months, 9 months, something like that.
10 months.
10 months, yeah. It's sort of arbitrary. It's just a number. This time can stretch, feel like a very long time or a short time. But yeah, very happy to have Ajahn back. The abbot has returned and came back for the Pansa. And so that was very helpful because Ajahn when he left, he just sort of said, okay, so the responsibilities fall on you now. And but I had an enormous amount of help, and I was thinking about how to characterize it. It's sort of like it's definitely not fun. It's not something that I would say is enjoyable being in a position like this. But there's a sense of course, as most people know, just having to make decisions, and then the result of that, what comes out of that. Whether a decision is wrong or right, or it doesn't matter because it's it seems like it's always going to have both of those aspects within it. And there are those who will say that was a great decision, and others will say that was a terrible decision. And then, at least for my own reflection, just my own thoughts about that can be up and down. But yeah, it's kind of been an interesting year for us, like just things happening, consequences of things. Mentika dying late last fall, and then the beautiful gift that she gave after she died, offering her home, Dhamma hall property, is another place of practice for us, another branch monastery of Abhayagiri. And two of our senior monks departing and establishing the monastery there. And for myself, one of the things I thought of when I wanted to return to Abhayagiri after being away for 7 years was, I'm not sure really where this intention came from, but I said, I'd really like to replace those 4 old kutis. And therein hangs a tale, because the imagination of how something will be, or how we want it, or how it will fulfill our dreams or our intentions, just always ends up quite differently. So we were involved in another building project at the time, and Ajahn just said, wait. And then right when he left, he said, okay, now you can go. And then the dukkha started. So I think most of us know about taking on a project, taking on something that we want to have happen. For some of us, it's not. We do that out of duty. Others, it's something that's handed to us, and we feel like we're put upon. We're having to do something. And it's interesting how that can affect the choices we make. But what I found, at least for something like this, which for me was quite a large project, the building of 4 monks' cabins, and first demolishing the 4 that were quite old, just was the sort of unintended consequences over and over again that occurred, and how important it was to have the perspective of Dhamma around that, and And the thing that I easily started imagining in the mind is like, okay, find somebody to build a building and these buildings, and then they're done. Do a little planning, figure it out. But there's just so much more involved in that. There's so much more, and the most thing that's involved is just one's own mind. And in every way that we take on an endeavor, great or small, we're dragging our mind along with it, and that has far-reaching effects on whatever it is we do. So I was thinking about Lumpur Pasno and how when Lumpur Cha was dying, it took a long time. It was like a decade between the time when he started to be quite affected by having strokes and his body kind of falling apart, and then when he finally died. But Lumpur and Lumpur Liam, Lumpur Pasno both had at least a sense of wanting to prepare for this, as the end was near, and so there was going to be another year before Lumpur Cha was going to be cremated, and so they spent that time really preparing for that, and it was an enormous event. I'm thinking of like, okay, building 4 kutis, and then, all right, this is an event to prepare for 1 million people over several days, including the king and queen, and so that had a sense of levity that I appreciated, just to remember how much incredible work that would take for Lumpur Pasno at the time, how much of that year was just dedicated to devoting his time, his energy towards really his teacher, a gift towards his teacher. And one of the things about this is that we can often think about, with Dhamma practice, like, well, that's not my practice. My practice is just sitting and walking. That's what I do. That's what's important, and everything else is secondary. And that can come up a lot. That can often occur with our own ways that we think about how we orient the teachings that we're receiving, how we kind of try to live our lives, and we compartmentalize. We often think of like, what's appropriate for me, and then we can put blinders on. I know that's been a thing that's been something to be very careful about. And in my earlier years here, that could be very strong. So there might be a sense of this isn't the right time. I don't want to. This isn't the right time for me to give anything. I'm just going to only give to myself, and that's how I'll practice. That's how I'll get somewhere. I will only work when I want to work. I'll only help when I want to help. I'll only these particular times are when I'm unavailable and when I don't help out. And that's interesting. I can definitely have a sense of when I would feel that way throughout the last 16, 17 years, where there was a sense of not wanting to really assist or help in a certain way. And how that would come up was really a sense of aversion, and I would just carry that back with me. I shouldn't be, having to do this, and it's not my responsibility. And this other monk just likes to be busy all the time, and I shouldn't be subjugated to his all of his busyness. And I remember feeling that way at times, and then I'd go back to my kuti, and I would spend an hour with a very unconcentrated mind, just feeling averse, or whatever it might be. And so that's something that I think is very important just to pay attention to, like the how we kind of see our own practice and what it is, what are the possibilities for where and when we practice and how we practice and who we practice with and who we don't practice with, and what is that word anyway. So I again come back to something like the generosity of the senior monks that I've seen in the monastery, and again, like Lumpur Pasno in that example I was giving, just spending an entire year preparing for the cremation of his teacher and how to prepare for 1 million people. With this project, with the kutis we were building, I was preparing for 4 monks to live in 4 kutis. And I'm just thinking of the enormity of what Lumpur Pasno and Lumpur Liam did to spearhead that, and the sacrifices they made, just working day in and day out for a year of their life. But I also can see that in doing something like this, when we take on larger projects for ourselves, we can become sort of motivated in a way that can move towards the unskillful. So for all of us, I think we have to prepare for those things. And if you think about in your own lives, like when you take on a particular project, what are the consequences of that? How is that going to weigh on the mind? How are we going to balance our lives in that particular aspect? How are we not going to get carried away by it so that that's the only thing occupying our minds? And so this year for me, in terms of doing something that I was quite unfamiliar with, working with contractors, making lots of mistakes that were almost crushing, and a lot of it was just like not imagined how much it would just really have to do with a lot of communication and really how to work with other people in a way that's skillful. And so I want to thank Ajahn Yaniko for giving me the opportunity to have not only engaged in that project, but also at the same time giving me the opportunity to try to help lead the community. And so that was quite special for me, trying to work through a lot of new challenges and find ways to deal with them. And of course, having the Dhamma as the backbone of that was incredibly useful, coming from a point of sila, coming from a point of reflection and wisdom in how to make choices and do certain things. Without that, then I could see that there could just be so much more turmoil in the mind. And so that's something that I saw. For myself personally, though, one of the things that came up was really how to deal with a sense of perfectionism and a sense of like, oh, everything has to be the way I need it to be, or it has to be that way. And then, unfortunately, that can have an oppressive power if we're not careful with that, because of our own perfectionism can weigh on others. And that was another lesson. Just mostly the words "let go" were what was trying to guide me, but realizing how difficult that could be was often present, sometimes day by day. And so even just now, I'm starting a retreat when this talk ends, and that'll be for 3 weeks. And Lumpur wished me well in my retreat, and I said, yeah, I think I'll just try to let go, but I don't know if I'm going to do a very good job of it. And he said, well, it's up to you. And that's the beautiful teaching that we have, not just from Lumpur, but the Buddha. This whole practice is up to us, whether we succeed or fail, or we how much we understand the Dhamma. It's really based on how much we are able to let go, how much we're able to really put effort into our understanding of the teachings, our understanding of our own minds. And the way that comes about is really seeing the like I'm just talking about perfectionism as an example, but just seeing our own tendencies and where those come up for us and how we can really try with wisdom to understand how do I let go of the unwholesome in this particular way, and how do I move towards the wholesome. And what I find is so incredible is how difficult that is. Is moment by moment it can be quite a struggle. One of the things that was quite useful was that I think it was mid-July. It was Ajahn returned, and it was interesting for me to see, like, okay, there was a lot of trepidation, because all of a sudden there's this momentum, as I was talking about with doing some of the things I was doing in the monastery. And okay, the abbot's back. And I was incredibly impressed because Ajahn came back. I think he referred to it as like Ajahn 2.0. And he didn't come back, like running. He came back walking, sometimes standing still, and just observing what was going on, and very much continuing the momentum of his 7-month sabbatical. Just taking his time, not immediately getting involved in things. In fact, he gave me a great gift and just said, well, Kuti project's going on, and just keep going. I'm actually not going to be involved at all in it, which was a bit, that was a bit hard, actually, because I both wanted independence with it, but I needed some help. But what he was saying was, well, you're doing a good enough job. You don't actually need my help. So that was very inspiring for me to see, because Ajahn is very active and energetic, and incredibly helpful in the monastery in terms of guiding us both in the Dhamma and how, the direction of where the monastery is going. So part of this reflection that I've been having is, though, why is there difficulty in terms of when we want to let go of things that we might intellectually be able to kind of see that they should be things that would be easy for us, but we just hold on so desperately to them. Often this is in the realm of views and opinions. We might have a particular view that my way is right, the way that I'm thinking about something, that's the right way that it should be, and that's just can be so painful for us when that's what we put as the important thing, that I have to be right in this particular situation, and when that occurs, then there's really no room for us to see our own defilements, our own unwholesome movements of mind in that direction, because we just see, well, no, I am right. There's no other question about this, and then we find all of the reasons why we're right and others are wrong, and so we tenaciously hold on, like an octopus's tentacles, holding on to whatever it might be, and it can be quite difficult to let go. The hard part about it is that we convince ourselves that we're so right, or we convince ourselves that in this particular situation, there's just no question here, and so we're blindsided by our own ignorance. So this is something that I found was very helpful to also look at, because trying to do something that I didn't have a lot of knowledge about, there could be some views and opinions that could easily creep in. And a good example of this was something that just occurred with, these cabins. They're like almost finished, and so I felt, all right, it's all done. And then there was a mistake that I saw that had been made that caused a problem. I've talked about it a few times already. But the after that mistake was made, there was some earthwork that was done around the kutis, and it disturbed the foundation. Man, I just couldn't let go of that. And so there was going to be a lot more earthwork done. And I just said, 6 feet, you got to do 6 feet. 6 feet away from any foundation. And then Tante Gesaro said, where'd that number come from? How did you come up with that number? And I said, well, he said, did you look that up somewhere? Is that a professional opinion? Or I said, well, no, it's just, it's what I feel comfortable with. And that's all that matters in this situation. I have to sleep well at night. And if it's not 6 feet, if it's 5, I'm not going to sleep well. So therefore, it's going to be 6 feet. So then we got into 5.5, and on it went. I think we got down to 5 in the end. I don't know. I actually let go enough that I haven't been back up to the kuti to see what happened. So I thought I was quite proud, and I wanted to tell Tante Gesaro, aren't you proud of me? You must feel so much that I trust you, that I haven't looked at all at what happened. But yeah, so that was quite helpful to kind of look at, like, where does this come from? This arbitrary sense of view that one might have. But what was really beautiful and really sweet is that a few of the monks saw that I was quite upset about this, and they just said, yeah, they're willing to help out. And so we, mixed about 120, 130 bags of concrete, something like that. And I say we. I think the other 3 monks did a bit more than what I was doing. But as an older man, I tried to do my part, and so I was just very thankful of that, because it could have been just one argument after the next. We don't have to do this. This is stupid. I'm not going to help you, and you're crazy. And even Ajahn came, showed up at about 5:30 a.m. and helped us a little bit with the foundation. And so it was very nice. And that kindness, that giving that arises, that goodness that arises without necessarily having to agree with another person. It's very beautiful to be witness of that, but also to be the receiver of that kind of kindness. And say, yeah, okay, I'll help you out. I understand this is bothering you a lot. So that, that these kind of lessons, they only come from really, at least being willing to look. And we can have a lot of drives like I've had this year around doing something, but without actually looking at them with wisdom and saying, oh, okay. One of the monks mentioned the dreaded word micromanaging. A heart, that felt like a knife to the heart. I thought, I don't want to be a micromanager. And then I just continued to micromanage. So it's really important, though, to then say, like, oh, right, that's actually true. And then to start exploring that, looking like, okay, I need to not, okay, we'll go to 5 feet. That's all right. So that kind of sense of being able to let go, and also say, right, yeah, I'm not always wrong, right here. In fact, most of the time I was wrong with a lot of the things that I was doing, but I was really trying to work with that sense of mistakes being made, not looking for someone to blame, dealing with wanting to blame, and or taking it on oneself, and then thinking like that the weight of that is so much. So these are all incredibly valuable lessons, and if I've emphasized a lot in my talks, if we're just looking at the experiences we have as, if I can go through life without making any mistakes, if I can go through life just continuing to seed, continuing to be the best all the time, and the best meaning that, like, yeah, I'm just a person who doesn't ever fail. I've just had a string of continual successes, hour after hour, really. Well, there's no wisdom that's really going to arise out of that, and also it's most likely coming out of delusion. So the helpfulness in that situation is always to think of like, well, right, okay, I am micromanaging, so how do I learn from that? How do I try to step back and see, how I can let others manage situations? The other thing, though, that's beneficial is to say, oh, wow, okay, that's been something that's been going on for a while. How grateful I am that there's been so many who've been willing to be micromanaged. And so there can be a sense of gratitude as well, that, and also inspiration that others have let go to a certain degree, or to an incredible degree. We carried probably over 750 bags of concrete over about, I don't know, it was about an eighth of a mile from this one area of the monastery to another, to this site. And when these cabins were first built, that's how they were built, but they weren't, I don't think, they weren't built with 750 bags of 60-pound bags of concrete. And people really, they really put their heart into it. They carried these bags, and sometimes they carried them back out. In the end, there was a what's called a skid steer, and I was like so happy. So we were able to finally use a skid steer to bring up that kind of stuff for ourselves. But this is kind of like what I was inspired by this year. So much giving for so many of the community members, and there was an enormous amount of inspiration to be had by how much people were really using the teachings of the Buddha and putting them into their practice, and then each day just letting go of what they might have wanted to do that day, and putting that aside. And for the work monk, for Tanrakita, that was something that was having to happen a lot. There was a lot of balance that he was trying to strike with this. And so I'm just coming up with, as I'm going on retreat now, and Ajahn Cunda is fully stepping forward into being the lone abbot now. I'm just feeling very grateful and want to express that gratitude to the community, and also Ajahn Cunda for allowing me to micromanage, and so it's been a great opportunity. And as I said, just it's hard to take the lessons from our own foibles, but when we do, then we have such a great advantage in our own life to really allow wisdom to come in more, rather than just being a trickle that we get every now and again, but it becomes more of a flow that we can see. And we have an opportunity to say, like, okay, how can I learn from these mistakes that I make? How can I actually appreciate them, appreciate the fact that when there's something that is pointed out or something that's difficult, then it can actually be brought in and corrected. And then see that it's not just a correction so that we can harmonize with other people, it's a correction so we can harmonize with ourselves. When we're willing to actually take on a difficult sense of like what it is inside of us that is not moving in the right direction, and we actually then change that direction, no matter how difficult, we find that it has just a great benefit for us. And often it doesn't feel that way when we're doing that. It feels painful, very hard to release ourselves from our old habits. But then eventually we get to see through wisdom. Through wisdom we see that, yeah, it's possible that we can benefit so much from that. So after this 3-week retreat, I'll be in and out of the community a bit, and then traveling with Lumpur. So just want to express my gratitude to the Sangha, monastic Sangha, and the laity for so many kind gifts, from everyone who is here, both resident and from afar. And I wish you all well. So I think I'll end here.